Hi guys, UK Guns here, and in this video I'm going to be taking you through some basic handling drills with a rifle. This rifle I've got here with me is my Smith & Wesson M&P 1522. I've made videos about this rifle on the channel before, so you can check those out if you want. I'm also this is going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour, essentially. I appreciate that this could be a very long video. You could spend hours doing this stuff. That's not what I want it to be. I want it to be a basic introduction for newcomers to the sport. So someone who's either never handled firearms before or is very new to handling firearms, and it's so that they can be safe, and also to give them some first sort of pointers on how to get their kind of a good technique to start with, but ultimately they're going to develop their own kind of comfortable way of doing things as they go along. And everybody does have their own way of doing things. It's different strokes for different folks' situation. You know, what works for you may not work for someone else, and vice versa. So I'm not here to tell you if you're doing it right or wrong. If you're an experienced shooter, this video is not really meant for you. This is just a good sort of foundation of where you can start from when using a rifle, and then you can build on that and find what works for you. The important things are that you're safe when you're holding and manipulating your rifle, and that you're comfortable, because that ultimately helps you to be a better, more accurate shot, and it's more enjoyable. So we're going to start off with just literally how we hold a rifle. Then I'll go into some of the basic drills, so loading, making the rifle ready, and then I'll probably do separate videos on things like trigger operation, reloading, and stoppages, those kinds of things. The reason why I'm making this video is because I recently put out a video where I asked what people want to see, and this is something I saw people asking for a lot, was some videos on basic handling drills. So that's why I've decided to put it together, and I hope you find it useful. But like I say, this is not meant to kind of cover all the bases, because it would go on forever. It's going to be a short video that just gives you a basic introduction and a foundation level, so that you can get out there, start shooting, and do so safely. So we're not going to get too much into the safety rules. I've done a video on my channel before about the rules of safe handling firearms. If you are not familiar with those, please do go and check that video out, or some of the other resources you can find on the internet, because they are really, really important and something you need to bear in mind when you're handling firearms, even in a training environment. So the first thing we're going to do, obviously, is we're going to take up our rifle. Now, of course, as always, make sure your magazines are empty and that the rifle is clear. I've obviously already done that off camera, so I know that this rifle is clear. But make sure you're still in a safe area, pointing the rifle in a safe direction, all those things. Still follow the safe handling rules. But like I say, I'm not going to get too much into those in this video. So the first thing you want to do is basically get comfortable with the rifle. Get it up into your shoulder. Get yourself set up. If your rifle has an adjustable stock, get the stock adjusted. Make sure your sights are set, at least for you, so that you can see clearly through the sights. You might need more or less eye relief. That's the distance between your eye and the sight. So adjust your stock, or try moving your head back and forward in the stock, and just get yourself comfortable, so that you can see clearly through the sights and you're comfortable holding the rifle. Now, there's a few different ways on how you can hold a rifle. I'm not going to go into every single one of them, and this is definitely where it comes down to different strokes for different folks. I know some people really hate certain techniques or whatever. It's really down to what works for you. I'm going to tell you what works for me. I'll mention some other ways, but you can find your own techniques. Okay, this is just meant to be guidance really for you, or information. So I prefer something called the C-clamp, or sometimes referred to as a thumb over bore, which is ideal for this style of rifle, and it's great for sort of practical shooting and those kinds of things. But like I say, not everybody likes that. But what that essentially is placing hand up front with a thumb coming over the top of the rifle. Now, you don't have to sort of exaggerate it too much and come all the way over, just however's comfortable. I just have that thumb sitting over. Now, you notice on my rifle here, I've got this bipod here. Well, it's a foregrip, but it also incorporates a bipod, because a bipod springs out of it like that. And that's great because it's versatile. I can shoot this from a bench or even prone if I want to. But then I have the grip as well. Now, I don't actually use the grip like that. You could do, and of course that's completely legitimate if you want to. I personally don't like that, but what I do use it for is this kind of flat portion you see here. I use that as like a hand stop, so I know that's where my hand sits. My thumb goes over the top there, and that's a nice comfortable position for me. You want your supporting hand, which normally your left hand, depending on how you shoot, you want your supporting hand to be quite far out on the rifle, really, because you want to make sure there's not too much weight forward of your supporting hand. So if you're always all the way back here, say holding the magazine, which is something that some people do, there's a lot of weight forward of that, and that can sort of lead you to sway a little bit, or With heavier rifles, this is not a heavy rifle, but with heavier rifles that may get tiresome quite quickly. So you want to really hold out as far forward as you can comfortably. Now, of course, if I had a longer handguard, it probably wouldn't be very comfortable for me to be all the way down here. Again, some people do that. I wouldn't find it very comfortable to have my arm that far extended. So, you know, down here with a slightly crooked arm, for me, is perfect. But, you know, you might like it a little bit further up or a bit further away. Find what works for you. Adjust your rifle so that you get comfortable. Because like I say, being comfortable is really, really important. That will make you more accurate and it will make shooting more enjoyable. So really important. Now, other ways you could do is obviously just supporting underneath the handguard there. You can still wrap around if you want to. Or like I say, you could use foregrips, angled foregrips. The possibilities are almost endless. And of course, you do have the magwell hold. Some people may prefer that. It's not one that I like to do. Unless I'm on the bipod and I'm shooting, I might have it there like that or back here or something like that. But otherwise, if I'm kind of standing, I want to hold the rifle further forward like so. I want to make sure that the stock of the rifle is in the soft part of my shoulder, in that squidgy part in the middle, and that I can get my cheek on my cheek rest and see clearly through my sights. That's really, really important. I want to obviously also be familiar with the setup of the rifle. Where is the cocking handle? Where is the safety catch? If it has one, not all do. Where's the bolt release? Again, if it has one, not all do. And where's the magazine release? And that's different for every rifle. So I'm not going to go through that on this rifle. If you're interested to know, I've made videos on this rifle on my channel. You can see those and see where all those bits are. But I'm not going to go into it in this because it will vary from rifle to rifle. So it may not be useful for many of you. But familiarise yourself with where things are on the rifle. Then, obviously, now again, another thing I should say here is the words of command on your range may differ. You're going to have to know where you're shooting, their safety rules, the range rules, to know exactly what you should do, when you should do it, and what you shouldn't do. Most ranges will operate very similar, but some ranges may have different rules as to when you can load your magazine or when you can commence firing and all those kinds of things. There may be flags or lights or other systems in place to let you know when you should stop, or klaxons to let you know when you should stop. You must familiarise yourself with the range that you're shooting on, or indeed even if you're shooting on land, have some safety protocols in place. How do we shoot? When do we shoot? What do we do if we need to stop or let someone know there's a problem? So make sure you've kind of got that all squared away beforehand. So I'm not going to get too much into that. But once you're on your range and you've been given the command or you've been given the all clear to load your magazine, that's the first thing you're going to do. So it's ideal. I have here a belt that my magazines can go onto. That's primarily for something like practical shooting, but you can use that just plinking on the range. It's handy to have your magazines in a convenient location. I don't have to go down to the table to get them or dig around in a pocket or anything along those lines, because not only can that just take time and not be very easy for you, but it does lead to your muzzle kind of swinging around all over the place, which many ROs are not going to be very happy with. So you want somewhere where you can get your magazines quickly, easily, and it's comfortable. And these things aren't expensive. You can find them online. So once I come to insert my magazine, I'm going to go down to get that. I'm going to bring it out. It's always a good idea just to look at your magazine to make sure A, it's pointing the right way, because if it's this way around, it's not going to go in. So I need to make sure it's pointing the right way and that my rounds are A, in the magazine, and B, that they're seated correctly. So I don't have any rounds at a funny angle or standing up on their end, something along those lines, because that's going to induce a malfunction. So bring the magazine out, check it's okay, and insert it into the rifle. Then all I want to do is just to give it a little tug down to make sure the magazine is inserted correctly, like this. Simple as that. By tugging the magazine down, I know that it is clicked into place. Even if I hear a click, it may not be all the way in. And if I was to then to cock the rifle, it may not pick up a round. And of course, that's then going to cause a delay. The magazine may even fall out of the magwell as well. So always give it a tug down to make sure it's inserted correctly. Avoid slapping the base of the magazine. I know we see that in movies, but it's not a good thing to do. Worst case scenario, it could damage your magazines. It's unlikely, but it could damage your magazines. But it also could, more likely, is dislodge a round. So if you slap the base of the magazine, you can dislodge a round at the top of the magazine. Again, that's going to induce a malfunction. They're not really designed for that. You just need to just push it into little clicks, give it a tug to make sure. If it's inserted correctly, that's great. There's no need to slap the base of the magazine. And that's it, really. Just out from the pouch or wherever you're keeping your magazine, and all the way in, and make sure it's inserted correctly. One sort of safety point to note that I will mention is making sure you try to keep your rifle relatively flat as you do so. You know, it might be okay if it comes down a little bit or even up a tiny bit, but many rangers don't want your muzzle coming up because of backstops and those kinds of things. Again, like I said, I'm not going to get too much into the safety, but just please do bear that in mind. So once you've done that, then the next thing obviously you want to do is to make the rifle ready. So that means loading a round from the magazine into the chamber. So when we first insert a magazine, that's called loaded. The rifle is loaded, but it's not ready to fire. Yeah, there's a magazine in, and the magazine has ammunition, but we need to put that ammunition into the chamber for it to be ready to fire. Now, what we don't want to do is do that until we know we're ready and we've been given permission to do so. Again, I'm not going to get into sort of individual rules and those kinds of things. Please check with your range as to what the rules are as to when you're able to cock the rifle and put a round into the chamber. The other thing you want to note is as well is just making sure if you do have a safety catch, that safety catch is applied before you start putting rounds in the chamber, if you can. So with some rifles you can't actually apply the safety catch until the rifle's been cocked. So again, you need to know your rifle. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some snap caps, which are like dummy rounds, and I'm going to put those into my magazine, and then we'll pick this up again. Okay, just briefly before we go on to making the rifle ready, I thought I would just mention slings very quickly, as I'm sure it may be a question that comes up. Essentially, should you use a sling? Should you not use a sling? If so, how should you use a sling? Now, there are different types of slings you can use. So this is like a 2-point sling, so it attaches to the rifle on 2 points. You can get single point slings, which usually attach to the rifle on the back and in the stock. Again, it's entirely up to you as to what you prefer. I prefer the 2-point, but you know, there are some positives to the single point sling. Now, again, I'm not going to get into individual kind of rules and ranges and stuff because it will vary, but please do check, as many ranges actually don't allow the use of slings. Well, not many, but some ranges don't allow the use of slings. Some do, or sometimes it's only in certain disciplines that allow the use of slings. And also there's a lot of time you may not actually need a sling. So if you're just plinking, you know, on a gallery range sort of thing, you don't really need a sling for that. But certain other types of kind of practical shooting or like CSR, those kinds of things, a sling could come in handy. So it really depends on what you're going to do and the type of shooting you want to get into as to whether a sling is really even something you need to consider. But if it is, what you go for is entirely up to you. But I'll just briefly talk about something like this, like a 2-point sling, and how you put that on. So all you do is you're going to take your support hand. So for me, that's my left hand because I'm right-handed, and you're going to put that through the sling first, and then the sling over your head, so that it comes across your shoulder, that is of your firing hand, your dominant hand, and then like so. Yeah, you want it tight enough that it can support the rifle if you were to let go of it, but you don't want it too tight that it restricts your movement of the rifle. This sling I've got here has got a bit of sort of bungee, a bit of elastic on it, which does mean that whilst it holds it kind of close, it does have a bit of play to go a bit further if you need it to, which is nice. But adjust it to your needs really. But that's kind of it. That's all you need to know with a sling really, nothing too crazy, but I thought I would just mention it and throw it in here just in case you were interested. So let's get on to now making the rifle ready. Okay, so I've now got some snap caps in my rifle. So these are just like dummy rounds essentially made of plastic. So it's always important that you check your magazines whenever you're doing any kind of dry fire practice or anything along those lines. Snap caps are great. If not, you can just take the spring out of the magazine or something along those lines, and that way you can operate the bolt without it holding back on an empty magazine. So we're in this position, the rifle's in our shoulder, we're loaded because we've got a magazine in. The next thing we want to do is cock the rifle. Now again, this will vary depending on your rifle, whether you're going to need to use your left hand or your right hand. Ideally we want to keep our hand on the pistol grip, but if it requires your right hand, it requires your right hand. I've got an ambidextrous charging handle, so I can do it from either side, so it doesn't really matter. You can do it AR-15 sort of classic way back here like this, or you can just grab one side and cock it. It doesn't matter if you have to use your right hand, so long as one hand stays on that rifle and it stays flat pointed in the safe direction at all times. That's the most important thing. So, and again, that's a good thing about the C-clamp method, is because I've got that bit of purchase at the front of the rifle and can pull it back into my shoulder, I can comfortably take my right hand off of my pistol grip no problem, and I've still got very good control of the rifle. So when you're given the word of command by your range officer, all you need to do is cock the rifle. And again, your cock and handle could be in different places. Could be back here, could be over here, could even be down the front of the rifle somewhere on either side. But all you do is just grip it, pull it all the way to the rear and let it go. Easy as that. Now, the important thing is we don't do what's called riding the bolt home, because that can induce a malfunction. I'll eject that snap cap. I've got another one in the magazine. It may not induce a malfunction on this occasion, but just to give you an idea of what riding the bolt home looks like, is basically where you pull the bolt rearward and then ease it forward like this. So that has gone into battery, but sometimes what can happen is the round kind of goes a bit skew-if and the bolt doesn't go back into battery. That's obviously not designed to be done that way. It's designed for you to pull it all the way rearward and just let it go, let it ride forward under spring pressure. That's how it's designed to operate, so that's the best way to do it. Okay, that's quite straightforward. I'm going to leave that there because I'm going to do a couple of videos on different ones. So this is just load and the ready. So getting your rifle into a state where it can be fired. We'll talk about trigger operation in a separate video. So firing the rifle and how we operate our trigger. I'm not going to go too deep into things like marksmanship principles. There's already lots of information online about those things if that's what you want to get into and you want to kind of follow that. I will touch on that stuff because it's all relevant about, you know, keeping your rifle pointed in a natural direction, the shot follow through, all those kinds of things. They are important, so I will talk about them in the videos, but I'm not going to kind of list them out and make it like a lesson because I think that might be a bit boring for some. And like I say, that's been done to death. That's all over the internet if you want it. But I will just talk about just basically how we safely operate the rifle and some tips on how to kind of help your accuracy and those kinds of things. I've said many times before on this channel, I'm not like the best shot in the world, so I'm not going to sit here and say like I'm a world-class shooter. I'm good enough. I'm not bad. But you know, I can pass on my knowledge as to how to operate firearms safely and those kinds of things, but I'm not going to make it too instructional on how to be, you know, the most accurate ever, because it's just not really what I want to be doing. I hope you found that interesting and useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, I'd appreciate if you subscribe to the channel and you'll see more content like this. I'm going to put out some more videos soon about different kind of handling drills for rifles, and I'll do some on pistols as well. And if there's anything else you do want to see, please leave me a comment below and I'll do my best to try and do that for you. Thanks for watching.